بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. I praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I ask Allah to raise the rank and the honor of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his family, his companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us this sincere intention. In reflecting on some thoughts that I had about current issues, as yesterday, probably like many of us, I watched, as many of us have, the closing arguments in the trial of, I think his name is Derek Chauvin of whatever his name is, which was the George Floyd murder trial. And as I was listening and the following coverage after it, my thoughts went to us as Muslims. What should be our stance, right? What should be our stance in these issues? Because no matter which way the verdict goes, whatever the outcome is, there's going to be a reaction. There's going to be a reaction. And we, living here in America, we're going to inevitably face that reaction, whether it is for a conviction or it's an acquittal. There's going to be a reaction. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, we were talking about what Allah mentioned in the Quran, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. That Allah described the nation of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as the best nation brought forth from mankind. And he described this nation of Sayyidina Muhammad as that you enjoin what is right and you forbid what is wrong. And you believe in Allah. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that whoever among you sees a munkar, let him change it with his hand. If he cannot, with his tongue. and if he cannot, then with his heart. And that is the weakest of faith. And I think it's my personal conviction that we as Muslims have not taken our proper role in general, not specifics, because there are always among this nation people who are active, people who are engaged, even if you don't know them. And we should keep that in mind when we speak, that we may be speaking generalities, not specifics, because there's always an exception to the rule. You know, there's always going to be in this nation those who are fulfilling what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered them with. It always exists. So even if it looks like there's an abundance of falling short, there are some complete, perfected believers who do what Allah ordered them to do. That always exists in every matter. However, when we talk about in general, we could do more to assist in removing munkar, removing bad things, and enjoining ma'ruf, the good matters. And when we look at injustice, oppression, racism, we realize that this is a munkar. Whenever you deprive a people of their humanity, of their ability to have freedom and justice and equality, this is injustice. And sometimes you've noticed that some Muslims have been taught, if it is not a Muslim issue, then we don't concern ourselves with it. And my first question is, what is a Muslim issue? When I hear that, if it ain't a Muslim issue, we don't get involved. What's a Muslim issue? That's always my first thought that comes to mind. What is a Muslim issue? Didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala order us to enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong? Then Allah said, let there be a group among you that calls to all good and enjoying what is right and forbid what is wrong. So let's define what is right and what is wrong. What is right is everything that complies with the sacred law. Everything that complies with the sacred law is ma'ruf. And everything that contradicts the sacred law is munkar. So we're obligated to enjoin ma'ruf. So that's everything that is good that the sacred law calls us to. And we're ordered to forbid munkar. That's everything's wrong, no matter what. So I remember when I was learning this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man ra'a minkum munkarin falyughayyirhu biyadihi," that whoever sees an evil, Let him change it with his hand. And I remember when my teacher was explaining this hadith, he said, "Men ra'a," whoever sees, means men alima, whoever knows. Whoever knows about the munkar, let him change it. So here, that means everything on the face of the earth that contradicts the sacred law is a munkar. And we are obligated within our capacity to forbid it. And let me show you how the nature of those evil deeds work. Injustice and oppression, when it's allowed to continue, it spreads and it affects everyone. I want to tell you a story because when I think of George Floyd and many others, you know, they're getting so many, I forget the names of people who are being killed and assaulted, treated unfairly. And it becomes the norm, so much so that we forget. And I want to say this as a people. We, especially African Americans, we have to stop forgetting so much. We have to stop allowing injustice towards us and just overlooking without correcting. We should overlook and we should give valid excuses and have a good opinion, but we should correct at the same time. And we should continue to overlook while we continue to correct. So there's a balance. But I think we overlook and we forget, and that's why it continues, because we don't correct enough, since sustained correction. We tend to do something for a little bit of for a little time, and then we run out of gas, and then it goes back to status quo. One time, I used to teach, and I never forget this. It affected me for a long time, and when I think about it, it still affects me, even though I don't deal with it on a daily basis. I was driving in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I used to teach at an institution in Allentown, Al-Maqasid. I used to teach there. So I would travel from Jersey to Allentown, Pennsylvania. Now that area is predominantly white area. And on the highway, it is common to get pulled over for driving while black. That's the crime. Driving while black. That's the infraction. Now, I understood that when I was younger, clearly, we would drive and you'd expect, don't go on the highway, you're going to get pulled over, especially in the 80s, looking for drugs and all that was just a known thing. But I'm a noble citizen. I don't commit no crimes. I'm a leader in my community, very active person, religious leader, community leader. I do stuff. I help out, right? So I'm driving on 78, Interstate 78. So when I take this drive, so I don't worry about it. Everything is cars right. I have good ID. I actually have a badge. My wife, retired police officer. And so I had this badge, officer's spouse. And I'm driving, so I see the traffic, and I see the officer in the middle divide of the highway. And before I got to him, automatically, I tried to make sure everything is correct. It's just a natural thing with Black folks when they know they're in predominantly white area and they see white officers. It's to be expected that there's the possibility that you're going to be harassed. You're going to be pulled over. This is a natural experience, unfortunately. So as I drive by, normal speed, everything's good. Next thing I see him pull out. Now there's a bunch of cars, not just me. Nice traffic. He pulls out. And in my mind, I'm like, he's getting ready to pull me over. Why? There's 50, 60, 70 cars. Why are you going to pull you over? I happen to be the only Black car, right? I noticed that. I mean, you notice the environment. He pulls out. So I'm just keep driving. He follows me for like 3 or almost 4 miles on the highway. So we're going at least 65, right? And he follows. So I take the exit, my normal exit, right? Now he's just following. I take my normal exit. And when I take the exit, he comes off the exit. And I take a turn, he takes a turn. So I'm like, I'm not playing this game. I pull over. He pulls over. He don't go by, he pulls over. And I just stop and I'm waiting for him. He says, I said, he comes up and he asks for license and registration. I said, why are you pulling me over? He said, when you made that turn off the highway, you were on the white line. I know you can't make this stuff up. So you were on the white line. I said, oh boy, here we go. Right. So I give him my license, registration, and I keep my license with the badge. So you know that I'm the spouse of a police officer. So, right, I give it to him and I give him my registration. So he has nothing. So, other words, if I'm just went on the line, okay, if you want to say I went on the line, give me a ticket for the line and I'm out of here, right? No, that's not how this is going to go. I'm sitting there for about 15 minutes. And he says, he comes back. He said, you mind if I search the car? I said, absolutely not. Because I drove on a white line, you want to search my car? He says, where are you going? I said, right up the road to the Islamic school there where I teach. He said, so why I can't search the car? I said, you pulled me over for going over a white line. What does it have to do with searching my car? He says, well, if you're going to give me a hard time, this can get difficult. I said, okay. Well, he's doing that while he's calling for backup. So I look in the mirror, I see all extra cars coming. So he don't know me. So he goes back. He comes back and he says, when the last time you been arrested? I said, what? This is the question. I'm serious. I'm not exaggerating. I'm probably minimizing the story. He said, when the last time you been arrested? I said, decades ago. He says, this was taking him so long. And this is about a half an hour now, maybe even 40 minutes. He says, you was locked up by the FBI. Now, mind you, that was 30 something years ago, right? This is a traffic stop. When I was locked up by the FBI, they didn't even have computers. They didn't even have all this stuff they got today. So what kind of digging was he doing? Think about that. What kind of digging you doing to go back 30 years for me going over a white line? He says, what did you get arrested for? I said, what the heck that got to do with the price of beans? My price of beans in China. I think it's the price of rice in China, right? What they got to do with the issue? Has nothing to do with the issue. You said I went over a white line. What that got to do with why I was arrested by the FBI 30 years ago? Now, I'm risking my life with this conversation. I already know that. But I'm so offended, I can't help it. Which is probably when they say he was resisting, this is why people resist this type of stuff. And so they said, we're going to get the dog. I'm like, get 10 dogs. It don't make me a difference. You're not searching my car. So when I see him getting together, I said, you see, my wife's a police officer. He said, they're bad cops. I'm not making this up. He said, they're bad cops. I said, really? That don't mean anything. Yeah, he's a bad cop, so I guess he knows, right? So as I'm listening to this, I called the chief of police in Atlantic City, whom I work with, so I know him very well. I got his direct number. I called him. I said, I need your help. This is getting ready to get ugly, because I see what they're doing. And in my mind, I'm like, they're going to end up figuring out a way to shoot me. This is literally going through my mind. And I'm like, all right, well, we got to be what it got to be, but nah, not today, right? And so that's it. The chief is like, he's listening. And I told him when it came, I said, it's the chief of police in Atlantic City on the phone. He's like, just do what they say. I'm going to get off the phone. We don't want to interrupt what they're doing. I'm aware of what's going on. Just do what they say and then call me as soon as it's over. So when they see I had the chief on the phone, it kind of calmed down. And then he said, I said, well, he said, let y'all search. Y'all can search. Then it all turned around. It's like, we don't need to search. We don't need to search. Came back, gave me all my stuff back, and said, have a nice day. No warning, no ticket, no nothing. The only thing I believe, besides the protection of Allah, was when I had that chief on the phone, they was like, oh, he must be more than we think. Had that chief, because he was ignoring the badge, so that's one thing. But when you got the chief of police on the phone, now someone else knows what y'all doing. Why am I telling this story? I'm Imam Amin, teacher doing. I'm black though, don't matter. And that feeling, every black man, black women, especially young black man, feels this on a regular basis, every single day. Right? No matter what you say, if you don't experience that as a natural state, you cannot imagine how that makes a human being feel. That needs to be removed. Right? That needs to be removed. And as Muslims, it should be on our agenda. And we should work for the removal of this munkar. It's something we should do. And whoever among the Muslims neglects this duty is not a friend of us. They're not our friends. Because everyone wants safety. Everyone wants freedom and liberty. And it's a part of Islam to want for your fellow Muslim, for your brother, what you want for yourself. If you had to experience that, you would want me on the front lines to help you. Hence, Islamophobia, right? And we should all speak. And it was big campaign of Islamophobia. But they weren't talking about black people when they were talking about Islamophobia. Because Islamophobia wasn't really about Islam. It was about foreigners, about immigrants. It wasn't really about Islam. Islam was just a word used for racism. But it was a big campaign for that. I want to see that same energy for the racism against black people. We gave our energy to help our immigrant brothers and sisters. We put all our energy in it. We want that same energy back on our issues. And it's coming. It's going to be tested. It didn't go away. I know that all the riots, people thought that's over. No, it's coming back. To the point that you had the Congresswoman Walters no, excuse me. What's her name? I forget. What's the black Congresswoman's name? Just got in trouble. Barbara. What's her name? No. Maxine Waters, excuse me. Maxine Waters. And they're attacking her statement that we need to be more confrontational and maintain. Yeah. Maxine Walters. Yeah. That's a woman speaking. Shouldn't men feel the same way? Confrontational don't always mean violence. Confrontation can be maintained or sustained resistance. And it has many forms. If that's women, then men should feel the same. If our black women would go against oppression, our men should be the same. And your basis for the Quran and the Sunnah is those verse I gave you and the Hadith. You are the best nation brought forth from mankind. You enjoin what is right, forbid what is wrong, and you believe in Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever sees a wrongdoing, a munkar, let him change it with his hand, if he cannot, with his heart, and if he with his tongue, and if not, he should do it with his heart. There's your basis. And anyone who comes with an excuse to tell you we shouldn't get involved, let you know they're your enemy, not your friend. We should be on the front lines of speaking out against injustice because we are the best of people. And as I mentioned this story, like I said, probably all of you have your own similar incident. And since you do, that means you know the feeling that we go through. So the issue is really not George Floyd himself and that single incident. It is something that is widespread that we must fight to change. Inshallah, I hope this scattered thought of mine these scattered thoughts put some energy in us to combat a system that is unjust. And don't leave it to the Christians and the LGBT people to fight a fight that we should be fighting. Don't let them lead the charge when we should be leading the charge. And they only lead the charge because they'll use the cause to promote something other than the cause. And you'll find that you'll stay in the same situation and they'll get more rights based off of your struggle. That's something to think about. You need to fight for your own struggle, and you need to be in the front line of that struggle. May Allah give us wisdom and allow us to realize that we're not in the world alone, and what affects others affects us as well. And we have the responsibility to stand up for what is right. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.